Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm excited to have a conversation with Karen today. We connected on the topic of safaris, which is something I've never done before. But then when I went to Karen's website, I realized she wears many hats. So, welcome, Karen. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to be here and nice to meet you too, April. Thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself. You wear hats, everything from speaker, minister, podcast host. So,
I do. And they all tie together in my head, but I could see how someone else might not realize that. So I am a minister, but I'm a new thought minister, and I talk about the principles of spirituality, and the spiritual laws. And I'm real big about connection and connectedness. And I actually have a podcast called the Connectedness Podcast. So everything's connected, and I try to help people not just learn that and know that, but to actually feel it and live it, because I think it's from that place of being in connection with everything that we begin to know the ease of life. And not that bad things don't happen, but things are easier to manage, um and and we can, like, not rebound, but when something bad does happen, it's a little bit easier to come back to our even keel. And so I do that a lot through animals. So I'm an animal person. I do, and like you said, I go on safari, take people on safari. I think for those that love animals or like animals, safari is a really pretty easy way to begin to get into that connection with all life. So, um, and sometimes I just talk about some of the principles, but safari is the funnest.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of safari, because you live in the United States, correct?
I do. I live in Seattle, Washington.
So
So,
take me back to that first time, or what was that draw to go visit big animals, zebras, lions. I see the animals behind you too.
yeah, yeah. I don't know when I first ever wanted to go on safari. It just seems like something that was always in my head. And I had planned on going a couple times. So I got married young, I had kids. So, I do have young adult children now. But I thought I was going to take them one year, and then that didn't work out. And finally, at one point in my life, things really sucked. I was post-divorce, and I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I just started realizing I had to take control of my life and try to work to make things better. And one of the things that I wanted to do was go on safari. So that was one of my goals. So I started applying these principles and these practices that I had been learning and teaching, not teaching at that point, but that I teach now. And uh, so I went, I started this about 2, 3, 4 months later. I had gotten a new job. I was making more money, and a friend said to me, "Hey, you want to go on safari with us?" And it's like, yeah, I didn't even think about it. I just said yes, of course. There was just three of us going, but I had this new job, and I thought, oh, I really hope they let me take the time off. But I didn't care. I just said, yeah, I'm doing it. And ultimately they let me take the time off. And it was magical. So I, I I love the animals, but I really wanted just to be in Kenya. I wanted to touch the ground. I wanted to be there and just feel like um, it was where I belonged. And partly because of that, every day was just more magical than the previous day. And it was, we landed. Kenya is very different. They don't have order and organization, excuse me, like us. Like, you don't line up at customs to go through. You just kind of crowd, and their streets are kind of the same. They just drive, in groups. So they're very different, but landing there and being part of it, it just, the excitement, it just all felt so good. And then we started seeing animals. And I remember I was just looking at my pictures the other day of the first trip. I think it was some kind of an antelope. Now I can't remember the animal, but it was like just this one all alone. And it was the first one we saw though, and it was so exciting. And, now once you've seen so many animals, it might not be as exciting to see just that one lone animal again. Anyhow, so I went on the safari the first time, two friends, and by the end of the safari, it was like, I need to come back here. I need to bring people here. So I'm also an animal communicator. And I knew that people I knew would want to come, you know, uh, and some other people wanted to come on the trip with us, but we wanted to keep it small. So we didn't allow too many people to come with us. So I talked to the guide, can we work something out? Can I start bringing people? And of course, it's not like he's going to say no, right?
Right.
But and so the other thing that happened, which was completely unexpected, not anticipated, I was not looking, but I met a man that I fell in love with.
Wow.
And just the last 2 days of safari, and it was the guide's brother, so he came with us for the last 2 days because he was out of a job, and long story. So anyway, um, so that was another thing that I wanted to come back and do safaris anyway, but then I end up marrying this guy, and he lives here in Seattle with me now. But so we go to Kenya all the time. His family's there, so I have family there as well. But I always go, like, even a Christmas ago, when we were going for Christmas, I first went to one of the lodges, one of my favorite lodges. It's like, okay, I'll meet you in the village. I'm going to, sit with the zebras and the giraffes for a while and meet you in a few days. So, yeah, I think it's a fabulous place. And,
That's amazing.
yeah,
Like you said, it just proves that whole thing of that connectedness. And sometimes where we're born is so different than kind of where our spirit feels like we should be or where we need to return to maybe for some purpose or reason.
yeah, exactly. I mean, had no real reason that I wanted to go to Kenya. And I will say that, and this might sound really corny, but my
No.
kids were young when the cartoon version of The Lion King came out. And that was on in my house like nonstop for months and months at a time. And every time it came on, I just felt like I need to go there, even though
Wow.
it's the cartoon version, it just really sucked me in
Right.
somehow, or
Yeah.
tapped into that part of me that wanted to go. Yeah.
So tell me about the trips that you put together then, because I mean, obviously you and your husband now do this jointly, I imagine.
Yeah, he does. So he also has a job here, so he's not always as free to travel. So for example, we're going on I'm taking people on a trip in September. The most I've taken, 16 people, I think, is
Oh,
what we're
wow.
at. And so we will go on safari, and it's a fairly long safari. It's 13 nights, and then most of us are going to go to the beach. So the beaches in Kenya are also gorgeous. There's a marine park, and people snorkel and
Oh,
watch the
wow.
turtles and that kind of stuff. And then most of them. Then my husband is going to fly over mid safari, and then we're going to go to the home village, which is much more rustic than even the most of the lodging, on safari, and just so people can really get an experience of how a lot of Kenyans live. You
Right.
know, most of them don't have running water. Some of them have electricity. Actually, very, very few of them have running water at that in his particular village.
Wow.
So just to kind of balance it out for the people that want to know, you know, what's
I
what
think
it's
that's
like.
important. Yeah, that balance of what it is. It's, because a lot of the brochures that we see about safaris or going to Kenya, they make it look all, fancy glamping and,
Right.
beautiful food. But there is the people, this is their home, and how do they live? And what is
Yeah.
it like to connect with them?
Yeah. and they're nice, very kind people. And I think they're happier than most Americans. I don't think they think they want a lot of the Western pleasures, but I think they do very well without them. And I think one of the keys with taking people over there, definitely my first trip, my first time being in a country like that with, living conditions like that, is not trying to fix them and not trying to westernize them, and making life better for them, because I don't think it would necessarily be better, but just, accepting them exactly how they are. And you do have all levels in Kenya, just like anywhere else. There's a lot of very wealthy people too, but they're very happy, and the kids are playing and having so much fun doing, playing with what they play with, what they find. So it's almost all the way around. It's a totally different, unique experience being there.
I think that's so beautiful. And I think that when we get out of our wherever we're at and go somewhere like that and see people, like you say, just experiencing so much joy, because you can see it emanating off their
Yeah,
face, and yet, maybe their homes are simple. Maybe, like you said, they don't have running water, but yet they're not depressed. They're not, struggling
right.
or worried about how they look or being obsessed with whatever gadget. We're so wrapped up in so many things that really, in the end of the day, just don't matter.
Yeah,
And I think,
exactly. Yeah, they don't matter. I think it's really good at helping us prioritize what's really important,
mm-hmm,
because with my husband, family is everything. And so when I look at how often I see my family, it's like, it's very different. And it makes us all, excuse me, I guess it transforms us differently. So obviously we're in this world a certain way as we are, um, which probably doesn't make any sense at all. But being able to see what's important to another culture, and looking at our culture, and how far we removed from it, and is it something we want to try to re-engage, try to bring back the family, unit, or whatever it is. It definitely helps me think, what's my priority now? What
right.
if I had 5 years left, what's the priorities to do? Is it, having the most social media followers? Whatever it is. Yeah.
Right, right, exactly. I think it really puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
So tell
Yeah.
me about spending time with the animals. Are there certain animals that you feel more connected with or more?
Well, there is for me personally, and I think it's different for everyone. So the zebras are my favorite. Um,
Yeah.
and and it's funny because, so my first trip, as I said, I was working on changing my life at that point. I had just bought a house. I had moved in 2 weeks before I went.
Oh, wow.
And so when I came, and I knew, um, when I was there and I saw the zebras and I got so excited, I knew I loved zebras. But I came home and was unpacking things, and I just kept unpacking all these zebras. And it's like, I didn't even realize before I went on this trip that I like zebras so much. So anyway,
Yeah, that's interesting.
yes. So the animals, I mean, imagine that well, there's two things. There's two places. Let me tell you about the lodge that I love to go to, that
Yeah.
I go to at Christmas. So they're in the middle of I think it's a reserve, which just means the animals are free to go everywhere. And in Kenya, what I like is there's no hunting, no wildlife
Mm.
hunting, or hunting of any kind. But so the animals are all safe wherever they go. There's no carnivores there, so all the zebras, giraffes, wildebeests, they're all
Wow.
safe. Yeah, for as far as that goes, on this particular reserve anyway, where I stay. And it's really fun to just sit on your balcony or sit inside and watch out the window, and the animals are just being animals.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know, they
Right.
are out there. The baby zebras are zooming back and forth, playing around. The adults are nipping at them, trying to get them to behave. And, they all just, they're free to do what they want. And so they can be wherever they want. And when you're out on the plains and you're driving up into herds of different kinds of animals, they don't have to stay there. They, but if they choose to, that's a fabulous thing. But when they look at you and they make eye contact with you,
Yeah.
that's really when the life prioritizes itself. Because once you connect with them in that way, like make eye contact or just, I actually have some exercises that I lead people through. So one of the things is you need to manage your energy when you're out there. You don't need to,
Oh.
if you want a deeper connection. Um, and that, what I mean by that is kind of opening up your heart space and inviting them to connect with you, and not coming in with this overbearing, rambunctious energy. It's okay to have fun, it's okay to laugh, but, don't just like come in obnoxiously
Right.
and scare them away, or come in obnoxiously, and the big cats are going, what is that? Do we need to investigate? Do we need to,
Yes.
is that a predator? So, or a competitor, I guess I should say. Um, and I forgot where I was going, but connect. So managing your energy and then sitting with them. So you're in the middle of these animals, and if you start to breathe and start to imagine that they're breathing with you, it's a lot easier to become part of their world, become part of that presence that they're in, because they're not worrying about yesterday or about tomorrow. So they're here now and they're with you, and you're just kind of all breathing together in the presence, and you can feel that everything's okay, you know, even if a lion's going to go on a hunt in a while. Right now, everything's okay.
I think that's amazing. And I like
Yeah.
that part about preparing your energy because I kind of feel like that sometimes when I was a kid, often I was afraid of like large dogs. But I learned if when I went walking, if I just breathe and just, try to control that fear, put it aside, or as you said, be too loud, just be calm. I'm walking here, they're over there. You
Yeah.
notice that difference, that you're just
Yeah.
putting that out there, that all is good. I'm not trying to intrude on your space. I'm not trying to. Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
do you still do that with dogs or with any
Yeah,
other
I do.
animal?
I kind of just when I go walking, because I just have learned to really manage, as you said, just step outside, kind of take a moment. And I see people walking. You see little dogs that are really, they've got that nervous, like they want to lunge at you. But once I
Right.
just kind of
Right.
just stand still and just breathe and kind of try to just, I've never had a problem,
Yeah.
amazingly enough.
Yeah. And that breathing is really important, because it'll slow down our nervous system. And so, if you are with a nervous animal as well, start breathing with them. It can help them as well. Yeah, the deep breathing. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's
amazing.
fabulous. So you mentioned that you are taking a group in September. Was that it?
Yes, yeah. Going in September, October, and then and it's full. And then next year, I don't know. We don't haven't set dates for next year yet. I mean, I'm super excited because a lot of people want to go that
Yeah.
aren't going this year. And the thing is, I mean, part of me would absolutely love to go 3 or 4 times a year, but then also I like to go other places too. Don't
Right,
tell
right. Don't we
anyone.
all? Yeah, exactly. Don't we all? Right. We have the same
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah. And, I'm not at a point where I can just travel, all year long. Yeah. So, but I definitely am going to Kenya next year. I don't know when. So I was also talking with someone else. I've never been to South Africa, and I'll be taking a group there in 2025, in March of 2025. And what I didn't know about South Africa until, I don't know, 2 months ago, is that there's penguins on one of the
Oh.
beaches. I know.
Yeah, my head is just like spinning. I don't think of penguins in South Africa.
I
Yeah,
know,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
so there's one
disconnect.
beach there that apparently I can't remember what kind of penguins they are, but yeah, there's just full of penguins. Like that's awesome. So penguins and then, the big five as well, going into some of the parks and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
but can
amazing. So do you prefer the fall season, or is that more what just works with your personal schedule?
For this year, it was because it fell into schedule with some other things. I Previous to that, November was my normal time. Just because the busy season's over, it's beginning to rain, or it may have rained once or twice, but it's not the rainy season yet, and it's not too hot. So the animals are they're doing pretty good, but they're not necessarily hiding in the bush. So when the rains are good, and I mean, and maybe it sounds terrible, and they don't have to go to the water holes, then
Yeah.
you can't see them as well.
Right.
Yeah, and through the summer, it's generally um is it rainy or hot there? I think it's rainy during the summer. Now I can't remember. There's a reason why I don't like to go in the summer, even though that's when the wildebeest, zebra
They have that migration. They have that
migration. Yeah,
yeah, that big migration, I think they call it.
yeah. But we can catch the tail end of that in September to November usually. So, and then the spring is definitely too hot. So I think the latest I'd want to go is November. So I kind of like the September to December, maybe January range, is pretty good. So, but that's just what I like. There's a lot of people that go all year round, and a lot of people go in our summer. It's not summer for them necessarily.
Yeah,
They're
that's
on,
what I hear. A lot of people go in our summer. But
yeah,
I'm wondering if then it's just over. Because I'm kind of like you. I like to kind of go in those
uh-huh,
edges when it's not quite so crowded to different places.
yeah, yeah. That seems to be a great time to travel. Of course, I'm in Seattle, so it's almost always cold here. So, I have 2 months in the summer that it's nice here, and so it's great to travel the rest of the time. But yeah, I, I, I just, I think, I don't know, fall and spring feels like a good time to travel usually, but anytime really is a good time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when do you like to travel most places?
Most places I go either spring or fall. That's
Yeah,
just me. I mean, sometimes I
yeah,
have to go early summer with family because my sister's a teacher, so her schedule's a little bit more restricted. But for
right,
myself, if I can, spring or fall, it's just the change of seasons that you see in the skies. And as a photographer, I just like to, I don't mind a little bit of rain or a little bit of, just because that provides a little bit more drama in the locations.
right, right. So is going on safari then something you've wanted to do? I mean, and being a photographer, do you photograph many animals?
Actually, I have. See, that's why it's just different. I haven't been as drawn to photographing animals,
Okay,
but it is something I think I would like to experience because it is so different. It's just so completely different to me. I wasn't raised, and like my family didn't have pets growing up, so my experience with animals has been much different than maybe
right.
families that, they have a dog, they have cats.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's always time to learn something new, right? Do something
Right,
new.
yeah.
Yeah.
So have you started to put it together your 2025 trip? Because I know there's travelers already booking and asking me in my networks of like, what's happening? And I'm like, wow, I'm not even through 2023. How can you?
I know. It's hard to plan that far in advance sometimes, but then We need to, especially when it's a pricey trip. Going to Africa is not a fast trip.
No, right.
So, I don't have the exact dates, and I'm actually working with another company that, or I'm going to be. So, the South Africa trip, and then I'm also going to do, I think, a Costa Rica trip,
Oh, wow.
and I want to do uh, maybe 2025, 2026. I want to go to, I guess this is my Disney series. The book, The Jungle Book, was based on the Ranthambore National Park, which is where the um, sloth bears and the jaguars and the
Oh,
tigers.
yeah.
I want to go and see all those at some point. Anyways, back to South Africa. It's going to be in March of 2025. I don't know the exact days. It's a trip, it's a tour company that does sacred and spiritual type tours.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, so I'm kind of excited because right now, like with the Kenya trips, it's all me and my husband emailing everyone, gathering everything, putting all the information out. So this other company will do everything. So it's like, all right, let's see how that's going to go. And then I just show up, which works for me. So, yeah, but I do know, I don't remember any of the parks we're going to in South Africa, aside from the penguins.
No, that's okay. As it becomes available, I'm sure you might, if you're collecting a group, put that on your website
Yeah,
and so people can
absolutely.
reach out to you. So you're going to be accompanying the group, but you won't be as such having to lead or organize.
Yeah, I won't be needing to organize. I will be, so these groups, they have what they call spiritual leaders. And so I'll be the spiritual leader of the group. So I'll be helping people as far as connecting. So
Yeah.
they do a lot of like sacred places like temples, Bali, that kind of thing. So I will be like the spiritual leader, animal leader. I don't know what that's going to be called, but
No, I like that though, because I think that is like you were just sharing. I think that is so important, and I think it's really life altering when you really connect. I know for me it's with plants and trees, but even this new respect for animals. When you make that eye contact with an animal, even as small as the birds, you just
yeah.
it's a different experience, and you question maybe what you're eating or how you're conducting your life or how you view animals, because we have become so disconnected in some regards to
Oh
certain
yeah.
aspects of our life. And I think for many, once they have it, whether it's a connection with a sea mammal or a bird or even a lion in your case, it
Right.
really changes your perspective and really can be a life altering.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of opportunity. And you're right. We have lost that connection. Um, or maybe not the connection. We have lost, I guess, what's behind all these practices that we participate in without even knowing, our
Yeah.
meals and all the industries, shoe industries and clothing and everything that we don't even know where things come from or how they're made or who is putting them together for us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just kind of is a domino thing. So
Hmm.
I think just reconnecting, really slowing down, I think that's an important practice to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. Me too. And that's like I said at the beginning, and like you also just said, that's why I love doing this is to help people, reconnect. Because I guess the connection's always there. It's just that we don't know it's there. We forget it. We never knew it, whatever it was. But to help us help everyone, connect. Because like I said, I think it helps us feel better about life. Like maybe there is some purpose. That's the other thing is when people are not finding purpose or meaning in their life, being able to connect to the natural world, I think is really helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm super excited that you're offering these adventures, escapes, whatever safaris you want to you
yeah.
want to call them. So where can people find more, listen to your podcast? I'm sure you've got some great information even to listen to some of your tips on connecting, whether it's in their own environment. They may not have to go to Kenya right away, but
Right, right, exactly. Even backyard, like you said, the birds. I actually, my last week, or no, this week's podcast was about connecting to wildlife. And it doesn't matter if it's Kenya or if it's the raccoons and the squirrels in your backyard. So my podcast is the Connectedness podcast. So it's on all podcast channels. But I think you have to look for Rev Karen Cleveland, REV Karen Cleveland, to find it, or at least that's how I had to find it, you know. Anyways, and then revkarencleveland.com is my website, and that's also like my Facebook. Everything is Rev Karen Cleveland, as in Reverend, but REVKAREN Cleveland. So, um, and I pretty much I show up mostly on Facebook, a little bit on Instagram, but definitely try to put stuff on my website uh and my podcast, yeah.
And
So
I definitely encourage our listeners and viewers to go check out your website. I think you've got some great tips, and from the animals to how we can apply those to our everyday life. And I am a big proponent of just getting outside, and whether that's connecting with your trees or the birds in your yard or the neighbor's
yeah.
dogs, I really think it can change your perspective, and I hope more people incorporate that. I see a lot of places just in friends and family that the last few years have been a challenge and struggle for
Mm,
people, and
hmm.
it was a shame to try to keep everyone quote inside, because
Right.
I think it really was damaging, and I hope people will take advice from you, Karen, and others, and
Thank you. Yeah.
sit outside and, just observe and
Yeah.
maybe connect with nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Get outside. I think that's the big thing. Yep. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking about it because it's what I think it's all what life is, you know?
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Karen, so much. And if anyone wants to join Karen's next adventure, it sounds like her upcoming ones are full, but you never know. Someone might cancel last minute.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. Miracles happen.
yep.
Trust me. So
Yep. So reach out to Karen. It was Rev Karen Cleveland, and that's CLEVELAND.com. And find
yeah.
her on Facebook too. Thank you, Karen.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much.